This is Robert Martellacci of the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine. And welcome to MindShareTV's Be Bold to Be Innovate and Transform Podcast, our theme for 2025. I'm your host, and today we have an extraordinary guest, Steve Brown, the CEO of Nelson, to discuss how bold leadership and innovation are shaping education in an AI-inspired world. Steve, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Robert. Happy New Year to you.
Well, I'm looking forward to peering into the future in an AI-inspired world with you. We've got our top 10 predictions and trends coming out later this week that we're going to perhaps give a sneak peek to. But first, I want to give a little bit of a background on Steve Brown, who made his mark in Canada internationally by leading organizations through digital transformation. His career spans a diverse mix of industry and technology experiences from multimedia, entertainment, logistics, services, automotive, and now learning solutions. Since joining Nelson in 2016, Steve has transformed the vision for the 104-year-old company by reimagining the role and purpose of publishing in 2017 and beyond, introducing a matrix-driven view to management culture and unifying K-12-centric business division at the core and shift of cohesive, customer-focused structure. Steve's passion for transforming education and student learning continues to fuel innovation pipeline at Nelson, and he's a member of the C21 Board of Advisors. Steve, what a journey it's been.
What a journey indeed. And when you an intro like that, Robert, it seems like I've already passed away and you're reading my eulogy.
You have a long runway, my friend, and much more impact to make on education in Canada and beyond. Talk to me about your role in leadership and transformation. Steve, you've often emphasized the importance of being bold to innovate and transform. Can you share how Nelson is embracing the mindset and what leadership qualities are essential to navigate this AI-inspired world that we're now in?
Yeah, it has been an interesting world. And you said in the intro about being 104 years old. We turned 110. We were 104 years old when I joined. We'll be 111 years this year. And the being bold is the first step. The first step is literally that. And the changing a culture is the most important thing to transformation. Getting people to believe the possible, to create their own realms of possibility. And once people get on board with that, for some people, it's a quick journey. Some people look to embrace it. They've always wanted it. They just didn't know what it was. Others, it's a little more slow. And, coming from a storied company like Nelson, there was a lot of tenure, a lot of people who'd worked here 10, 20, 30 years. We've got a couple of employees who've been with us for 38 years.
Amazing.
So there's a deep mindset in that is kind of entrenched. So change it runs at various different speeds. It depends on the individual. But as we start 2025, I would tell you that uniformly, all of our employees across this country and around the world believe what we're doing and that we can do anything we set our mind to, which for me is the most refreshing thing. I love coming in every morning and just, listening to the laughter around the coffee pot. It's great to have that sort of culture.
Well, amazing perspective and leadership culture that you've nurtured at Nelson. And you've made a big bet along with your team on digital transformation.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that bet that you made in that journey with Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin really was a Bet the Farm initiative. We'd been the largest and oldest educational publishing company, a textbook company for over a century. So saying that the textbook really wasn't relevant anymore was kind of a big bet. And it took a lot of people off guard because, disrupting yourself is the best way, in my opinion, but it's seldom done. You look at AI right now and what's going on with AI in education, that's a disruptor from outside, not from inside education. But, our Edwin journey has been tremendously successful. The last calendar year, we had another 100% growth year for the 5th year on a run. It's very widely used. Last year, we said that Another year at 100% growth gets more difficult each year. We said that at the beginning of the last calendar year. I actually don't believe that anymore. I expect our growth curves to actually go ballistic. I think we're going to see thousands of percent growth each year for the next few years. And now we're in 10 other countries around the world with Edwin as well. So it really has made a difference. And the difference is twofold. It's in teaching and learning. But, you've got to speak with data. You've got to look at student outcomes as well as engagement. And we've got great efficacy studies. We've seen massive increases in student math performance, as well as increases in literacy. So we now know that it's no longer opinion. You know me well. I've always had belief. I always knew we would achieve what we have achieved. I think the variable has been time, but now we've achieved it and we will continue to accelerate, focusing on giving teachers back time, giving them the resources in a format that's multimodality, whether it's text to voice, voice to text, whether it's videos or manipulatives. So to give teacher back the time that they so sorely need, and as equally as importantly, to give students the tried, true, and trusted learning materials that they need in a methodology for learning that mirrors other aspects of their life. So student engagement and teaching practice with a world-class tool really is becoming very, very widely adopted, not only as in this country, as I've said, but across the world.
Talk to me about the whole transformation process and what that takes, and the courage and the traditional print sheet. We still often hear about worksheets and
Right.
photocopying.
Yeah.
What message do you have for these educators who are kind of stuck and not by their own definition either? I saw a study recently that talked about the fact that teachers are stifled because the system isn't moving quick enough for them.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think anybody can blame the teachers. I mean, teachers go into a noble profession because they're good people. They want to do right. They want to do good things for their students and for society in general. But I'm actually encouraged as we start 2025. I think we've got some tremendous ministers of education in provinces across the country. And I think 2025 is going to be a huge year. I think that, not giving teachers the tools that they need creates the time element that teachers are finding themselves in, where they're struggling to find the right resources to teach students. And often, we shouldn't put teachers in that position. But there's a paradigm in education that says, this is how it was, so this is how we do it. I think we need to break that down. And I think that, if you listen to the consumer of knowledge, and that's the student, I think working with those consumers of knowledge, you can actually engage students more, and you can make the whole ecosystem of learning, from a school district or a ministry of education to an actual school, down to a classroom, down to a teacher and a student, a far better and more effective journey. And giving teachers and students the right tools really will show huge benefits.
Well said. Talk to me about storytelling. You are a master storyteller. The importance of infusing storytelling in the digital transformation process from top down to the classroom teacher, because that is painting that picture, creating that culture.
Yeah.
There's been so much change in leadership at all levels in education.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm the peak of the baby boom, my birth year, which I won't share. I look a lot younger than I am, no doubt. But the movement of people, and it's really, systems are about people. Talk to me about the importance of storytelling and being concise. And we know some great leaders who have transformed their districts, large and small, because they've been majorly focused on the culture and the storytelling, having that vision in place.
You should never underestimate storytelling, Robert. And it's a great question. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Everyone in interviews always leads with, that's a great question. That's normally to give them some time to think about an answer. But I genuinely mean that. Storytelling is paramount inside an organization. outside an organization, because every aspect of life, people love stories. And if you look at the indigenous communities across Canada, their whole history is about great storytellers. But if you, as a leader, if you can inspire with a story and belief, people will follow you. You're only a leader when you're followed. But creating the realms of the possible in a story, a clear and concise and interesting and appealing story, you'll get people on board with that story to be able to drive change. And you're right, there's been a lot of change in the systems across Canada, and with leadership, particularly in Ontario, and we're seeing more and more of that happening. I get Google alerts all the time about directors who are leaving. Obviously, a lot of the directors are personal friends of mine, and I saw so many of them announcing their retirement. Some of them are going in January, some in March, and more in June. But I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by having an energetic set of new leaders coming in, knowing that they can create the future. And if they're great storytellers, their principals and vice principals who are absolutely key in a district or a board to be able to get on board to follow that story and believe in the destination, then that's why I think 2025 is going to be such an amazing year.
On that note, the notion of personalization of learning has been talked about infinitum over the years.
Yeah.
With the advent of AI and platforms like Edwin, are we seeing great examples of teachers now achieving a greater efficacy around personalized learning, especially for 2025?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because I think that the AI world is pretty binary. It's either utopian or dystopian. And I actually am more contrarian than that. I think it's somewhere down the middle. You have to make sure that the student engagement and coupling that with trusted resource, with real facts, not with hallucinations, to make sure that you can actually embed AI into the classroom. But you've got to put a ring fence around it. You can't just let kids go into AI and expect them to come back with real learning. And we need real learning. There's this whole thing on personalization that, as you said, has been talked about as long as I've been in education, coming up to 8 years. But there's a view of AI is the answer to everything, and it really isn't. AI is never going to replace the teacher. AI is never going to replace relationship. And the problem on the negative side of AI is its ability to turn out content. But the problem is that content's not necessarily aligned to curriculum. It's not necessarily true and correct. But if you use AI as a tool to supplement and to work with learning materials and to aid teachers in giving back time to spend more time with students, then it really can create a personalized environment for learning. So I think that as we accelerate away in AI, and it's still very much in its infancy, and it's really going to accelerate, I think that that's going to be narrowed down. And I think the classroom of the future is quickly approaching us for personalized learning and personalized teaching, to be able to ensure that every single teacher's got their own strengths and weaknesses, that they can use a tool to bolster their weaknesses, or perhaps strengthen their strengths even further to be a more effective teacher in the classroom.
Fascinating insight. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about the future of EdTech and the multitude of companies that exist. There's some 400 plus companies doing business in Canada. Nelson is a 110-year-old company. You need to update your profile bio on your
you need
LinkedIn.
to update your profile, Robert. My profile's fine.
I picked that off your LinkedIn, I think. But there's a multitude of companies that are making an impact, but consolidation is necessary.
100%. I think 2025, you're going to see a thinning of the herd. I think EdTech became a shiny object in around 2020. 2019, it kind of kicked off. 2020 was a mass accelerator as we went into the COVID pandemic. if you look at those 400 companies, how many of them are profitable? If you look at those 400 companies, how many of them have kept going back for seed rounds? But with the advent of AI, the size of investment from venture capital is changing. So I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation, and you're going to see a natural thinning of the herd, where when those companies who are burning cash trying to grow keep going back to the capital markets, a few of them are going to get hard nosed. Like, you've had enough. You know, it's 2025. You've been running at this for 5 years. You're still burning cash. So we're not putting any more in. So I think some will die on the vine and others will be bought. We're always looking at acquisitions. We've bought a few over the years. We'll continue to look at the right ones. For me, the focus is easy: build or buy.
Right.
You know, if buying it is faster to market and my tech team believe that it's the right platform that can be integrated into Edwin, then we'll buy it. But otherwise, we've got what I believe to be the best technology team in the world, who can build anything for us. The question is speed and price.
Well said, and great advice for these fledgling ed techs. And many of them are passionate former educators and want to make an impact. And sometimes they're not necessarily the best entrepreneurs or have that expertise, but teaming up with organizations like a Nelson could be an accelerator and a win-win if they, as you said, you buy or build, and whatever makes most sense. So you might just be approached by a few ed techs later today, but hey,
that's okay. I'm talking with a bunch of them now at the Ed Tech Summit that you hosted. I got to meet a few of them, and
there's some really and we were fortunate at some really great ones too attend. Let's pivot now to innovation and advice for organizations, both ed techs and school districts, around transformation and some advice you might offer. When you look at those districts who have pivoted, the demystifying AI and having a process in place on digital transformation, it's a journey. And when you look at districts like Ottawa Catholic or West Vancouver or Abbotsford, it didn't happen overnight. They've been on this vision and this train for quite some time.
Yeah.
What advice do you offer to school district leaders and ed techs if they're looking to make that critical pivot in this particular year, 25? Incidentally, it struck me that 50 years ago I started high school, and that's quite a marker. And I was reflecting on how much has changed in that 50-year time frame.
Mm-hmm. How much it's changed and how little it's changed, let's be honest.
Right. Well, my hair growth has not, it's reversed itself, but there's been a lot.
Should we do a whole segment talking about hair? I think we're just a couple of guys.
We could, or we could plan a trip to Turkey if we wanted to.
No, I am perfectly comfortable in my follically challenged state.
Likewise.
I don't need to do anything about it.
Likewise, but it's been a fascinating time to see. Our high school, George Harvey, I graduated from the Toronto District School Board, and the entire basement was a computer.
Yeah.
Right. It was an IBM computer, the punch cards, and now this has more power in my hand.
100%.
So we've come a long way. So where are we going with this?
The advice I always give is don't choose the vehicle. I mean, you talked about, changing and disruption and, what's going to happen in 2025 with AI. AI is a vehicle. AI is a tool. I think if you're going to be successful in driving true disruption and achievement, and let's face it, we're talking about learning institutions. So at the very core of everything's got to be student outcomes. It's the only thing that matters. So that's a non-negotiable. Now, how you increase those student outcomes, the first thing I think that you should focus on if you're going to lead disruption and you're going to lead continuous improvement is choosing the destination. And then you choose your vehicles. So no destination ever goes from A to B in the shortest route. You're going to have bumps in the road. It's going to take you longer than you thought. It might be a circuitous route, but choose your destination and let that never, ever, ever be a negotiable. So if you choose your destination, whether that's graduation percentage increase, grade point average increase, higher level of literacy from grades pre-K to 3, numeracy from grades 3 to 9, or whatever it may be. And those may all be individual destinations. When you choose those destinations, those have to become non-negotiables. And that means your staff, your employees have to understand that those are going to be achieved. You need to be flexible. You need to be agile on the journey to get there. And then you choose your tools to be able to get there the fastest way possible. If speed is important, sometimes it's direction, sometimes it's speed. It's better to have a continuous level of improvement than move very quickly and then have a negative year the following year. So I would say focus on your destination, be absolutely clear, ensure that the message and the storytelling gives that clarity, and go to your destination. You can achieve anything you want.
You know, being a car guy, that's very relatable to me. So thank you for that analogy. Well said. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what you envision for Canada and the US, and whether or not we're going to become a 51st state or not, because that might change a few things for your business operations, including US dollars.
Yeah, you know, I'm a glass half full type of guy. I think we're going to see political change. I think we're going to see political change probably this week as we sit here on January the 6th. But I'm also a little bit more optimistic than some people. The changes that are being made politically around the world are contrarian to what's gone on in the past. But sometimes that disruption and that change can bring around positive things. And I actually will be very interested to watch it from the sidelines and see how it changes. As to Canada becoming the 51st state, I don't think that's going to happen. I know Kevin O'Leary talks about it all the time.
My old boss. I'm a little shocked and disappointed, but you know.
But I actually, you know, as a proud Canadian, I've been a Canadian now since 2022, I think. I actually think that the future of this country is great. I think it's got something that can really, really, really cement our future, and that's natural resource. And when you have natural resources, ultimately you can win out. It just depends on stewardship and choosing that destination, as I've spoken about. So I'm not worried about that. I think, you know, everything. The only thing I know to be true is all things are transitory. And, you know, there's a lot of young generations looking out there now thinking, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen? My advice to them is take a breath, drop your shoulders, step aside, look at it. In 4 years, things change. You just talked about 50 years of change. You know, I've got a big birthday coming up in a few weeks where I'll be 60. So I've seen a lot of change too. Yeah.
That's exciting. My wife's just celebrating that this week. So
that's great. Congratulations.
Birthday week. Yeah.
So you know, all things are transitory. Things change. Things come and go. Don't let it affect your mental health. Just understand that things will change. And ultimately, I believe in the goodness of human nature and the goodness of mankind. And I think with great tools, we can accelerate those changes for good, not for bad. So,
well, thank you for that. And I really appreciate the human side of education that you really focus on. And I know well-being is a big focus for and diversity inclusion for Nelson. Do you want to just touch on that for a moment? Because you got vast resources in that area as well.
We do. And it's something that I'll tell you a personal part of my journey. I was absolutely ignorant on the atrocities that happened to the indigenous peoples of this country. Totally ignorant. I knew nothing about it. And I don't know why in 2016, it was one of our huge global meetings. We had around 500 people present, and we brought a storyteller in from Winnipeg who told the story. And then I spoke with one of our staff members, who's now our Director of Indigenous Studies and our Executive Director of DEI. And it really struck me the atrocities, and people didn't used to use the word atrocities, but they were atrocities that happened to people. So I think we have an obligation to be able to educate in those areas, both DEI and Indigenous history. And, you know, we saw the passing of the Right Honourable Murray St. Clair last year. We worked very closely with his son, Negan St. Clair. And I think you can't have reconciliation until you've had truth. And I think that societally we need that. And I think we need that as a country. And I think from a DEI standpoint, we've got to be more tolerant that there is no right. There's no right or wrong. There's only difference. And we can play our small part of that obligation in making the world a better place to ensure that society understands that we need to be more centrist rather than polarization.
Well said, Steve. Any final thoughts to share before we wrap this up? January 6th is going to be a momentous day for 2025 for a number of reasons, including this podcast.
Oh, well, I don't know that this podcast is going to change anything too much, but if we
get inspiration.
All right. Well, it's all there if those people want to come and watch it. No, I'm just, looking forward to this year ahead, and I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen. And I look forward to working with every educator out there right across this country and other countries around the world.
Well, grateful for your time this morning, Steve Brown, and grateful for your contribution to the C21 Board of Advisors as well that you're part of. My name is Robert Martellacci, the MindShare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.MindShareLearning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep for 2025. And that's a wrap.
Good.